used to consist of 4 days. This year the GMD consists of 5 days, which means we have 2 days of civil society deliberations ahead of us, Monday and Tuesday. The governments meet on Thursday and Friday for their meetings and their deliberations. But on Wednesday we have a full day of shared, or almost a full day of shared space with governments. And during this shared space, Michel Lavoie, as our chair, will give a report back of what we concluded and decided and discussed during our civil society days. So the task upon us the next days is give Michel the input that she needs to go out to governments, and we're expecting quite a large group. I think about 700 people are registered for that session. To go out to governments and convey our message as collective civil society. And after that, after the presentation of the civil society report, and there's also a presentation of Ban Ki-moon, of the Crown Princess Victoria, there is a thing called Common Space, where we will meet in breakout groups with groups of governments to talk about specific themes. So that's going to be another opportunity for us as civil society to convey some of our messages, some of our recommendations that we want to put out to governments. So that's the basic structure of the GMD. The government days itself are rather close to civil society, although there are a few civil society experts that participate in various sessions, and the government days result usually in a set of outcomes and a set of recommendations that are non-binding, but that are taken forward by national governments to their home countries to change their policies and practices. So, again, for better and worse, if the GMD is one thing, it's very much an agenda-setting forum, and it's a place where we try to change minds and mindsets and practices, all to improve the conditions under which migrants, families, and communities live, work, and move. So that's just the basic about the GMD. Then about this year's Civil Society Days. As Jibril has already quite eloquently introduced, the theme that's been chosen as the overarching focus by the steering committee is shaping migration and development goals, global movement, change on the ground. So why this theme? What's the story behind it, and what does it mean for your work ahead of you in the coming days? Well, first of all, the focus on goals and the focus on migration and development goals is very much a reflection of the priority of civil society to build upon all the outcomes and recommendations that we already have from previous years. We don't start from scratch. And if you look into your welcome packages, you will find 3 specific documents that have been put. 2 of them have been put out by civil society. One is the famous 5-year 8-point plan, with 8 priority issues that were presented by civil society to governments last year for collaboration. One is a set of 7 recommendations that came out of the GMD Civil Society Days in 2012, including a few benchmarks, how we can measure progress. And the third one is the famous declaration that came out of the UN High-Level Dialogue last year in 2013. And we put that there because it's a document that's been agreed upon by governments, by consensus, and has quite a lot of interesting promises and articles in the declaration. So we wanted you to use that as a reference point. So the idea of this focus on shaping goals is to take these recommendations that we have already concluded as civil society and as governments, and to try if we can translate that into more concrete and more tangible and more measurable indicators and benchmarks. How do we measure whether in 3 years from now we've actually achieved what we recommended a year ago, what we recommended in the 5-year plan? At the same time, of course, shaping migration and development goals in this year, 2014, with the Millennium Development Goals almost expiring, it also very much links back to how do we ensure that migrants, migration, mobility becomes part of a new global development paradigm and a new global development agenda. So you will see, and I'll get to that later, that quite a few elements in the agenda today and tomorrow will look at this so-called post-2015 development agenda. So then there's the second part of the sentence, which says global movement, change on the ground. This is very much a reference to the global movement that we collectively as civil society have been making over the past years, how we have connected and converged different perspectives and tried to come up with a unified voice, or unified voices maybe is a better expression to use. It's also a reference to further global movement that's needed by us as civil society, and global movement that's needed from governments to structurally change something about the global institutional setting around migration. But at the same time, there is this sentence that says local, or change on the ground, local implementation. And this is a reflection that the reason why I think we all work in this field is because we want to change things on the ground in the daily lives of migrants, or families, or communities, whether it is to prevent forced migration, whether it is to tell a different narrative about migration, to protect migrant workers from abuses. We all want change on the ground. So therefore, while the program is focused on formulating goals and targets and indicators, we don't want to lose the personal story and the local perspective. And we very much invite you to, particularly during the working sessions, share some inspiring practices and examples where things have changed, or where things are not going well, but on the local level, so that when we go home, there's something we can immediately start working on, and we don't have to wait for the post-2015 development agenda to be accepted and developed. So, what's the flow of the program? This morning session, we focus specifically on the global movements that have been taking place in civil society, and there is a specific session on the post-2015 agenda. And in between, we will be welcomed, and we're very grateful for that, by the Minister Billström for Asylum and Migration. Then in the afternoon today and tomorrow morning, there's a set of breakout sessions structured around 3 thematic tracks. So there's one thematic track that completely focuses on labor mobility, and labor rights. Then there's a thematic track that focuses on protection of migrants, protection of children. And then there's a thematic track that focuses on development and the role of diaspora and migrants in development, in the countries where they go to and in the countries where they came from, or countries of heritage. So you can choose a session to go to this afternoon and a session to go to tomorrow morning, but the sessions that happen this afternoon and the sessions that happen tomorrow morning are linked. So the idea is that conclusions that are already drawn today don't have to be repeated tomorrow. And as I said, the goal of these working sessions is very much to come up with a set of goals and indicators for progress, while at the same time try to identify a set of inspiring practices. So maybe very briefly, because this is a word that we use quite often, indicators, benchmarks, goals. What does that mean? When we write project proposals, we have to come up with how do we measure that this project was a success in 3 years from now. There is a document out on the tables that gives a matrix with different targets and indicators that relate to the post-2015 development goals. And or the post-2015 development agenda, I should say. And certain indicators or targets you could think of while you're going into your working sessions is, for example, an easy one, a reduction in the cost of sending remittances to less than 5%, preferably 0%, a rapid decrease in the use of immigrant detention, specifically for children, but then of course with the objective to have no child ever again in immigration detention as soon as possible. Abolishing of the systems of tied employment, for example, in a few years from now, striving for equal pay, for equal work, whether you're an immigrant or not, and so on and so forth. So that's the kind of targets and indicators we're trying to get out of the working sessions. The results of the working sessions will be recorded by a rapporteur, will be printed out for you tomorrow morning so that you will know what happened in the previous working sessions. And the same thing will happen tomorrow during the lunch break, so that you will have all the outcomes of all the different working sessions. And in the afternoon, the rapporteurs will actually do a report back of what was discussed, and there's an opportunity for you to add if you feel that things were left out. And then the last thing I should say about the working sessions is, unlike the plenaries, which are live streamed and which are recorded, the working sessions happen in a closed space. They're not being live streamed, and they take place under Chatham House rules, which means that you cannot be quoted outside of the room. So you should feel free to speak your mind without being afraid that might leave the room. But we should say, and we're grateful for that we do have government participation.